All right. Well, I'm going to miss that song, but I'm sure we'll hear it again this year. Okay, and here we are. It is already the last Sunday in March, and some of you may be happy to hear this, but it's the last Sunday that I'm going to get to comment on March weather. And I'm not going to miss an opportunity, and especially in light of yesterday's snow and this morning's Arctic winds. And so yesterday when I was at the market, see, I'm not the only one, and we all know we're thinking these things, but I overheard two people talking, and one of them was complaining about the weather. And the other person just shook her head, and she said, it's March in Michigan. Everyone knows March is bipolar, which explains a lot. So whether March goes out the way it came in, on the currents of very chilly winds that roared like a lion, or if it decides to go out like a gentle lamb and the sun shines all day long, time moves on. And by next Friday, it'll be April. And we will have plenty of gentle lambs and chicks and bunnies to look at and enjoy and welcome in a month that is about new birth and rebirth. But today is today, and so it just seems appropriate that here at LEC, we should end March the way we began it, but not with a roar. We began it with a focus on clearing out thoughts that get in our way, thoughts that are sticky with analysis, thoughts that seem to whirl around in our head like a whirlwind, so that we can't find a thought that we want when we want it. And thoughts that keep us small and unadventurous in our self-expression. Thoughts that cause us to live old stories over and over again. Thoughts that cause us to feel the same self-doubt, so that we live what was without giving what can be a chance. It's time to get rid of those. So a good question for us to ask ourselves on this final day of March and as we enter into new birth and rebirth, am I keeping tucked away the self that I'm created to be inside the one I'm afraid I've become? And am I ready to live the reality of my divinity now? Science Mind tells us that we can change our life experiences by changing our thinking. That we can decide that we're free to choose, to tell new stories about ourselves, to think new thoughts if we want to. And Gudrun Rieger wrote, I started to be free when I discovered that the cage was made of thoughts. A belief is comprised of thoughts we think over and over again, and through repetition. They weave a fabric that veils our perception of ourself and life. And what we see within us and what we see around us appears to us to be all there is to see through that veil. And so we worry and stress over the patterns of thoughts that have woven that veil without realizing that it's all our own creation. We're convinced that every thought we believe is the only truth there is. And so we argue for the limitations that are the result of our own invention. We make a cage for ourselves out of inflexible and resistant thoughts, and then we wonder why it is that we don't feel free. Nisargadatta Maharaj wrote, "When the mind is kept away from its worries, it becomes silent. If you do not disturb this silence and remain in it, you will realize that it is surrounded by a light and a love that you have never known. And yet you immediately recognize it as your own nature." Which brings us to the title of today's talk, More Than Words Can Say. Our true self is more than any thought that we have ever thought about ourselves so far, and more than any thought we will ever think. Who we are is more than any word can describe or convey. When our mind is free of already thought thoughts and free of thoughts that are yet to be, in that gap, in that silence, within the light and love that surrounds it, we experience a self that is beyond words. We recognize our own nature as boundless life, experiencing itself as our life. As infinite energy playing with itself through the vibration of our thoughts. As unlimited, formless spirit, temporarily taking form as our human form, just for the joy of being us. Rupert Spira said, if we want to speak the absolute truth, we must remain silent. We are absolutely free, even now, even in this world, to be whatever we choose to say we are, until we decide to say something different. And yet, we remain all the while more than words can say. Now, as you might guess, I'm all about words. I love words. I love spoken words. I love written words. I love words that are carefully chosen and put together in such a way that they're energized by the divine energy behind them, so that they seem to bounce with joy and pulsate with love and flow in the tranquility of peace. I love to give a Sunday talk that uplifts our spirit and encourages us to open to new thoughts. Walt Whitman wrote, I swear to you, there are divine things more beautiful than words can say. And yet he spent his whole life trying to convey the beauty of those things in words. Words are important to our desire to connect with each other. In fact, we often feel uncomfortable with each other if we're not speaking. We find it difficult to be with someone and not say anything because we're so used to placing words in front of us and listening to the words that another places in front of themselves. That when we're alone with someone and there's only silence, we're vibrationally naked. Without words to clothe us, we're more able to experience pure energy within us and around us. Silence allows us to become aware of ourself and the other person in ways that words cover up. In those moments, if we would allow our mind to remain silent, rather than trying to figure out something to say to fill in the space of silence, we would be able to feel the life within us, experiencing the life that is with us. There's nothing more intimate than vibrationally communicating with life. Abraham Hicks tells us that everything vibrates, and everything is communicating and reacting and responding and integrating with other things that are vibrating. We're doing it all the time. But all that vibration goes on behind the scenes, and yet it is far more important to our positive experiences in life than any words we could ever say. True communication comes from vibration. That's why some animals, like dogs, growl at some people and not others. They feel the vibration of intention. And we're all capable of doing that. But so often we don't give that feeling and the vibration and the energy, the attention, or the value that it deserves. Most of us, we want a quick answer, and we shut down so fast on things that are unspoken. We're so hasty to size things up right away, to decide if something is good or bad or right or wrong or wanted or unwanted, that we don't allow our mind time to be silent so that we can focus on the positive energy that is available beyond thought and is always present everywhere. There is always some nugget of goodness that, if we're patient enough, would come into our mind and bring with it a thought or a whole bunch of thoughts that would be satisfying and positive. Abraham Hicks tells us every person is that kind of nugget. Every situation is that kind of nugget. But we need to find a way to stay silent and speechless long enough to become aware of the good stuff that's there. Now, if someone really loves us, no matter what we say, they're going to love us anyway because of who we are. Someone they love. But there's so many words that the moment we say them or someone else says them, the moment that they're heard, words like love, a word like God, that we have already wrapped around those words so many ideas about it that we either love a word or we don't love a word. We like that word or we don't like that word. We get a good feeling about it or we get a bad feeling about it. But we make cooing sounds to babies and animals that are nonsensical as words. But babies and animals completely get it. Not because they're fluent in the coo language, but because babies and animals are so aware of their immersion in love, so open and willing to receive love beyond words, that we could say anything to them while feeling love and they would totally know what we mean. Babies and animals are more open to unconditional love than we adults are. So words aren't necessary to clarify what we mean or to clear up a misunderstanding. When we adults truly love someone, whether it's another person or an animal, we think words are necessary to explain what we feel or describe what we feel. But it seems like no matter how many words we use, no matter where we place them in our sentences, it is never quite enough. It never quite does it. Love is a feeling that is more than words can say. Love is an experience, just as God is an experience beyond words, no matter what word we use for God. We can talk about love. We can talk about God. But we can't know love or know the God of love without experiencing it. Abraham Hicks tells us everything is vibrating. And as you give your attention to it and hold your attention upon it for as little as 17 seconds, whatever its vibration is begins to be included in your vibrational mix. Could say, be careful what you stare at. When we allow our mind to be silent and hold our attention upon the light and love that surrounds it, that surrounds us, the vibration of that light and that love begins to be who we are vibrationally. We allow God's pure love to be included in our vibrational mix. And when God is vibrationally active in us, we feel our true nature as divine life having a human life, as pure positive energy playing vibrationally through our thoughts and what we ask for and what we want and what we don't want. And as formless spirit, temporarily taking on this form that we've taken on for the sheer joy of being ourselves. And that joy will always be more than words can say. Namaste. All right. Well, here we are already. Zippity-doo-dah. Well, this is the time of our service when we get to say thank you. Thank you. Really, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your presence here in the sanctuary. And thank you for being here wherever you are right now. For the love and support that you continue to give because you care about your own spirituality. You care about the truth of who you are. And you know that we do too, because we care about the truth of our divinity and the truth of who we are. And so we come together each Sunday to experience love together. And in order to continue that, in this world, requires some financial support. So thank you for the financial support that you've given so far that has brought us to this moment. And if you want to know how you can support us financially, then our treasurer has some really good information for you. Jamie Phillips.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There are a few ways that you can support us here at LEC, and I'm going to run them down. Of course, if you're here in the sanctuary, then we'll be taking an offertory. If you're online and you'd like to know how to give, you can donate via our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Life Enrichment Center. You can go to our website, lecflint.com, and hit the contribute button and donate that way. You can go to PayPal. Our PayPal address is lec2512@gmail.com and give via PayPal. Or you can send a check to the Life Enrichment Center, 2512 South Dive Road, Flint, Michigan, 48532. And at this time, I'd like to call our offertory receiver, Janice, up to take the offertory, and we're going to listen to Nemo Patel and Daniel Namad sing Grateful, and then come back for a gratitude prayer. Thank you.